moisture.
Welcome to the Mike Less Farmhand Mike YouTube channel. A farming and outdoor channel that I started in 2012 that now has over 1,600 videos, and thanks to you has over 180,000 subscribers with 100+ million total views and over 12 million hours of total watch time. I am filming and uploading new content all the time, so come along for the ride. I'm in Furnace, Pennsylvania at the Ag Progress Days, so come along with me and see the show. The Pennsylvania Ag Progress Days Farm Show is an annual event held at the same location every year. It's a 3-day show that usually runs Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This year the dates were August 13th, 14th, and 15th. This is only my third time at this show. I was here in 2022, and the last time before that was in 2007. This show has a pretty good mix of everything that has to do with agriculture in Pennsylvania. Now, a lot of manufacturers don't actually have a booth set up here. A lot of this is put on by local dealers across the state of Pennsylvania. But overall, a pretty good 3-day show with field demonstrations, good food, lots of machinery to look at, and so on. I attended the show all 3 days, and I was here with Iron Advantage, who is a Deutz Fahr dealer out of East Earl, Pennsylvania. I'm just showing you an aerial view of the show. There was field demonstrations all 3 days. Now, every year at the show, they do something a little different, but it seems like every year they do hay and forage stuff. So they actually mowed hay, raked hay, ran mergers, and baled wet hay. They also had some sorghum Sudan grass that they mowed on the first day as well. And then they did a corn planter demonstration also. When I was here in 2022, they did a combine demonstration. They planted spring wheat in the spring of the year, and then they harvested it during the show. I did not do a video of the show in 2022, even though I did get some footage, so I will show some of that combine footage at the end of this video. Throughout this video, I'll have various footage as I walked around the show, showing you some of the equipment up close, some of the field demonstrations. They also did some seminars here. I will have a bit coming up here. They were demonstrating planting no-till corn into a cover crop. That'll be coming up, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to talk the entire time of this video, so just going to show you, and you get to see what I got to see. You can see the planters off in the distance. So it's my understanding they actually planted some corn there 4 weeks ago, so you could walk through, see what it did. And then they also ran the planters each day, so you could walk behind and check them out. During the field demonstrations, everybody had the chance to talk about their machine. Then they would take it out and run it. Then the crowd could walk out, look at the machine, talk to the reps or the dealers, and learn about it. As far as the field demo schedules went, they would mow and ted hay around 10:30 each morning. The planter demos were at 12:30, then at 2:30 in the afternoon, they ran the mergers, rakes, and the balers. And I heard a rumor this 3060 is off to get hooked up to a hay tedder for the field demos. First up was the mowers, and on day number 1 of the show, they were mowing this sorghum Sudan grass. I couldn't get real close here. They had everything roped off, so here's what I got.
So this came out in 2023. It's a very good product for us. The cutter bar on this spine is the same cutter bar that's in the 316.
And for safety reasons, when the mowers were coming back towards the crowd, they were told to slow down. And after they ran the mowers, the crowd was allowed to go out and look at the machinery and talk to the people running it.
But I can.
fun tool to have if you got rocky conditions.
Alright, you have to have a tractor, a machine, an operator, fuel consumption. After you dig them out, you have to rake them. The best rake in the world only scratches the surface. Then you have to pick up...
It is afternoon on the first day, so it's time for the raking, the merging, and the baler demos. And I believe this is the only farm show I've ever been to that has a slurry store or harvest store products at it. So I talked to the guys here, so if you still want a slurry store for manure storage or a harvester silo, they still build them and you can still put them up. A.O. Smith does not build near the slurry stores or harvester silos that they used to back in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s. Mostly water storage now, but here's a couple silo unloaders. Anyways, just something different at a farm show that you don't normally get to see, but here in Pennsylvania, you do. Day 1 of the show is complete. It's now day 2, so I walked around a little bit in the morning, walked over here and was checking out some of these sprayer drones. Now, I have seen these in action now, but you can actually get an attachment for these to seed cover crops with, which I think would be ideal because you could actually broadcast those cover crops on before you harvested your corn or soybeans, and they could get a little bit of a head start, an earlier start to get growing before winter. Over the next couple minutes, I'm going to walk around the show, and you're just going to see some of the things that were here. And how many farm shows do you go to where you see a silo unloader?
interested in planting green, and a number of them, the bigger percentage, has planted green. So like Ron said, this isn't a typical crop that we would plant into in the spring. So on our farm, we plant typically in the fall. If it's early enough, we'll plant something that has a legume in it. So we plant hairy vetch, crimson clover, wheat, oats, and some peas. And that rolls really nice in the spring. We also in the fall will plant rye, and we'll plant green into that. Everything that we plant on our farm is planted into green living cover crop, corn and soybeans. So obviously some of you that have done this in the past have maybe encountered some issues. And so that's part of why we're here today to maybe explain a little bit more the do's and the don'ts to try and eliminate some of those issues. One of the biggest issues, I think, number one, is we're planting our cover crops too thick. You might think that you gotta plant, if you're wanting to plant a cover crop, more is better. Well, actually, less is better. When we first were testing out, now 15 years ago or so, we found that it was very difficult to manage a cover crop that was so thick and so dense. We couldn't get it down, we couldn't terminate it, then we had problems with our planter, and then with heavy cover, you can encounter issues like wrapping on the closing wheels, and I think that's probably the biggest challenge that all of us have experienced over the years, that you have to have the right attachments, and so we're here to help you with that. This planter here has the spike closing wheel on the one side and a solid steel on the other side. The solid steel isn't a problem, but if you got into the spring, if you had 4 or 5 foot or more high rye or something like that, this here system would create quite a problem. So Martin has all sorts of attachments that can allow you to go through planting like this. There's also row cleaners up there. That's another place where it creates a big issue. And then depth wheels. Some of the planters now are coming out with narrower depth wheels or split depth wheels, so that you're not you get a better seed placement if you have a narrow closing wheels. Maybe I'm going to talk a little bit about the nutrient part of it, the nutrient placement and the nutrient management, fertilizer. So maybe you have animal manure, livestock manure, chicken, hog, dairy, that you need to take in consideration. But one thing that we found in planting green into an environment like this is the importance of getting more nitrogen up front. With the planter, put down more nitrogen. I'm not telling you to put more total pounds on that crop, just putting more on up front. So depending on what you're planting into, if you have a legume, if you have clover or vetch or anything like that, that is providing nitrogen to the soil, but it hasn't been released yet. So that's why you want to get some more nitrogen on up front to get that crop growing. Then during the growing season, that cover crop, the legume cover crop, is going to break down and give back some of that nitrogen. Planting depth is very important. So if what do you estimate the biomass here is, Ron? You think maybe 3,000 to 4,000 pounds?
Yeah, at least two. I would say at least 2,500.
Okay.
I'm looking at somebody that's done a lot of sampling of that over the years when he was here at University Park.
So it depends on how much biomass you have. I mean, I've planted into biomass that had as much as 12,000 pounds, 14,000 pounds, and with that comes a lot more management with this guy right here. You got to get out of the tractor and check your planting depth, because these depth wheels are going to tend to bring that seed up maybe a quarter of an inch, maybe even a half an inch if you have heavy cover crop. So get out of your planter, check your depth. We checked some depth here yesterday and it was variable, but this is only for demonstration purposes only. We're not checking out the seed placement at this point. So we're demonstrating planting into green living cover. I don't want to take all the thunder, but I do want to touch on herbicide.
I was going to say, before you get into that, Jim, show of hands, how many folks are growing grain organically without herbicides? Okay. Yeah, actually, and I don't want to keep putting you on the spot, but Tasha is involved in a project where, and it's an ongoing project here, where we're looking at grain production without, in an organic system. But Jim talked about how, yeah, we got to watch it. We don't seed too heavy. For that system, we're actually looking to seed it probably heavier than average, just so we can produce so much biomass. And is it a challenge? Sure. But if we don't put enough seed in the ground and we don't produce enough biomass to be rolled down and plant into, we lose our weed control. We don't have the opportunity to come back with Roundup or Sharpen or Lord knows whatever might be your favorite product or your mix.
So in that context, instead of planting a bushel of cereal rye to the acre ahead of soybeans, we were going out at maybe 2 or 3 bushels to the acre ahead of soybeans, and then rolling it down before planting.
So there's a number of ways to roll it and just terminate it too. Now, are you finding you have season-long control of weeds with the 3 bushel of cover crop?
Well, so this particular planter, I have 5 years with this planter, and it's changed almost every year in those 5 years, but it has row cleaners in the front to part the cover crop as we're coming through and planting. But that was a big trade-off in the organic system, right? We're creating an open area of soil, and oftentimes that was the hardest place to actually come back and get some supplemental weed control with the cultivator and what have you. So we've gone back and forward with row cleaning or not row cleaning, depending on your goals and objectives, right? One other thing this planter has, and we'll probably get to that later after Ethan runs it, but we have this this other coulter running in front of the double disc openers, which is a residue slicer. And we kind of have backed in a lot of the current iterations the last couple of years, we've kind of backed off those row cleaners, not pushed any soil, and then kind of relied on the cutting action of that residue slicer instead.
So Liam, why don't you talk a little bit about the benefits of letting this residue on the soil?
Well, back to the organic question. That's where having row cleaners where you kick a space there, you're not going to have the protection there. Personally, I grow soybeans, and I just have 50 acres, but I usually grow rye, but I bale the rye. So but I'm not organic. But I have one field that's really hilly and it's a pain to bale, so 3 years ago I just told my neighbor to plant, just go in and, I just left the rye. I mean, the rye was 6 foot tall or more. For planting beans, he didn't have, I thought he had row cleaners on, but his bean planter doesn't have row cleaners. So if we planted it, it's only an acre, I thought, hey, well, I got to lose. I couldn't believe those beans came up through that thick mat. For 2 years in a row, I had perfect stand, which was, I don't know if I was lucky. This year, same thing, although it might have been a week later. The rye was really getting stiff. I have maybe 15% of the surface area that has nothing but mat. The beans didn't make it through there. So if you have an organic setting and you want to keep the mat down there for your weed control, you can get away with it, but it's a little questionable. And I don't know how to explain why 2 years in a row it worked. And I mean, I had 15% stand loss. That's not disaster, but it's not what you want either.
Yeah, when we planted soy with a Dawn roller, so it had the hydraulic down pressure, but we were having a hard time getting the cutter through the rye.
Oh, okay.
And we planted probably over 100 pounds an acre of rye. But then I realized we didn't have the row cleaner on ours. But if we started the planter down before it got into the cover crop, it would kind of, the openers would push the rye out of the way rather than cutting through it. Because we tried to change the down pressure and get that cutting wheel through the rye. We had 2-3 inches of rye in some places. So I was kind of thinking if we can get it in the ground first and then go through the crop, and then that machine kind of pushes it away, the opening just push the crop out of the way, and then it can slice into the ground and get it.
It does make it easier to get the seed in the ground, but then in my way of looking at it, you've just created an avenue for weeds.
Yeah, I mean,
that mulch, it's not a plastic mulch, but that mulch of organic matter that we're rolling down there is your weed control.
That's part of the trade-off in this.
Yeah.
You plant less cover crops so you can get the seed in the ground, but now you have less mulch to help with your weed control. If you have a herbicide option, you can probably live with that. If you don't have a herbicide option, now you got a problem.
We have a high residue cultivator that I hate to drive through because all the rye gets wrapped up along the shanks, and it's just a pain. If everything's perfect, then the soil moisture is good, and the soybeans are small enough, it works. But it'll ball up, and then 50 feet later, you look behind you, and you're ruining some plants. So.
But you mentioned moisture. I'll just throw this out. In a dry year, these thick cover crops, they're evapotranspiring water like crazy. And the amount of water that crop is pumping out of there. So if you have a dry year, who knows, this year we thought we were going to have drought, and all of a sudden we have floods, which is kind of normal for farming. But if you have a really dry spring, you might want to not wait too long to do this, or not even do this, just kill it off, because you are going to be pumping your water. In those 2 weeks between killing it and planting, you're pumping a lot of water out. You'll get away with it if it starts raining, but what if it doesn't start to rain? Now you're going to definitely take a yield hit because you lost water by having that cover crop pumping out.
But oftentimes we don't know what the extended forecast is going to be. So with a system like this, it takes a lot more management in order to be able to manage a system like this. So you were talking about moisture, so yeah, this can be a detriment to you in a dry spring, but it also can be an asset to you on a wet spring, because now that crop is drawing some of that moisture out that allows you to get in and plant it sooner. The biggest thing I think for me was we were able to reduce our herbicide, our recommended manufacturer herbicide rate, we were able to cut in half with a system like this, because you have all this mulch that's acting as a cover to cover the soil, and so you don't have your weed pressure. The other thing, then once you get into the summertime, you're still going to have a mulch, something similar to that. That there is keeping the soil cooler, and it's also holding the moisture that is there. So I would have to say I think the benefits outweigh
Potential negatives.
the other option, but it takes a lot of management. Dean, you got a lot of experience with this. Why don't you say a few words?
When we plant green, I mean, the thing to do, if you can, look at the long-range forecast. If it's going to get dry, you might want to take the covers out early.
Yeah.
But we've been planting green for a lot of years. We really like it. We started because we're in Danville, about 2 hours east here, a lot of shaly soil. And if you look, we were looking at yield maps, we realized our issue was moisture. We didn't have enough of it. So our goal was to increase the organic matter in the soil. And so we would plant rye and let it get big, and Jim talked about the idea of the mulch cover on the soil, keep the temperature down, the evaporation. We knew we were dry this year. Our corn didn't suffer near as much as some of the neighbors who were running tillage, or even just conventional no-till.
Where are you located?
Danville. So, there was, that's what we looked to. And two, I mean, if we're able to take small grain off and grow a cover and plant through that with a legume net, and we've got instances where we have cross-seeded clover into a small grain and put like 60 units of in on with the planter, and then did zero yielded as well as like a molded species next to it with 100 units of nitrogen. It just was a little slower coming out of the ground, but that's been our experience. You know, on the organic side of things, we wouldn't put the roller on the planter because of the weed issue. We like planting as a standing up, plant first and then roll later. We plant first and then spray and then crimp. But if you can do that in the organic thing, you just cut your crimper at a little bit of an angle, it'll roll everything right down over the road. You don't have the bare ground there. So that's one thing that we do.
Perpendicular to what you roll, because now it's going to make it very difficult to cut into this crop residue. So my early years of planting green, I did not have we have the ZRX roller like on this planter here. Before that, we used a cultipacker, and it did a reasonably good job, but I soon found out early on in that season that you pretty much wanted to roll in the direction that you were going to plant. Otherwise, you're bucking all this residue that way when it wants to go this way. And then on the headlands, where we rolled straight out and tried to plant the headlands across, we did not have the best seed to soil contact because we had trouble cutting through. So Dean, I mean, there are guys out that will plant and then roll, and then it's a non-issue. Jake Blank from I&J Roller was here yesterday, and he said a few words. I don't think he's here today. So they're the manufacturer of crop rollers, and they have a lot of experience with them. If you're interested in doing something like this, make sure you do your homework before you decide to do that, because again, I will say it takes a lot more management than what it does planting into conventional soil, because now you're having to manage this cover crop with your planter.
That I could say about a roller doesn't have the hydraulic down pressure is you need to make sure your field's flat.
Yeah.
If there's any dip in it at all,
yeah,
you're not getting that pressure against the soil, and you're not going to terminate. So.
And with this system here, they're shorter rollers, and so the hydraulic will follow the contour of the soil, where with a big I&J roller, you don't have quite that flexibility. Week, and you can still see there's nice amount of moisture there, but one thing was touched on a little bit was the soil temperature. So there was some test temperatures taken here and over there just this morning, or 10 o'clock. And where's Josh? He's up there. He's using a microphone, getting a microphone. But anyway, we did a test this summer in much heavier residue than this. It was a 95-degree day, and we did this, and we did an area that had no cover on, and there was as much as 15 degree difference in the soil temperature. So I sort of use the analogy, if I was out in a cornfield and it was 15 degrees cooler in the cornfield where there was cover, that's where I'd want to hang out. Not over there where it was 15 degrees hotter. So it's the same way with the plants. The corn, soybean, whatever is growing, they don't want to have any stress at all. So by having, number one, having the soil covered, keeping it cooler, the corn's not going to be stressed out as much as it would be on the bare soil. Matt.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about your experience with Planting Green. Matt's also a board member on the No-Till Alliance, and he's got a lot of experience with this too.
Where should I start?
Well, I don't know what you heard, what we said, but just tell them what worked for you and what didn't.
So, you know, we're talking about summer crops generally.
I went out to the planter demos on day number 2 of the show, so everybody had a chance to talk about their planter, and then they ran the planter up the field just a little bit, and then after everybody was done, you could walk out and see the job they did. Now, the corn that is right beside the planter, I was told they planted about 4 weeks prior to that, so you could go out and look at the stand and so forth. First up was the Fendt tractor and Momentum planter.
However, it might make you a little bit cooler.
It is now day number 3, the last day of the show, so let's see what we can find. And a machine I was not expecting to see at the Pennsylvania Farm Show is this Heston stack hand behind me. So evidently the university owns this. I don't know if they use it much, but it looks like there's been some modifications to it. Let's have a look. Looking at this machine and some of the modifications they made, there's actually a weigh bar on the tongue and one on each axle, so they did put a scale system on here to weigh stacks. Looks like the cylinders have been replaced. Those are not the factory cylinders, something I need to do to mine because my cylinders leak on both my stack hands. Something there on the chute. And then if you come around to the other side here, they put these inspection doors in here, so maybe they was going in checking stack density, whatever. But anyways, again, just something cool I was not expecting to see here. We will now head out and watch the last day of the demos here with the mergers, the rakes, and the balers. And over my years of being in the farm equipment business, I've been going to farm shows for a long time. And on your typical 3-day show, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday shows, it seems like the first day, Tuesday's always a fairly decent crowd. Wednesdays always seem to be the busiest day, and then Thursdays generally is a pretty slow day. And this is just my opinion. It just seems like every year the overall crowd just gets less and less. And there's probably a lot of factors that play into that. It does seem like in the year 2020, of course, all the farm shows were a no-go because of COVID. And then they started again in 2021. It just seems like things have really changed after that. A lot of the manufacturers actually pulled out of the shows and are letting their local dealers run the show. Like this year here in Pennsylvania, it's been very dry. So I talked to some people that were going to start chopping corn silage, which is typically probably a little bit early. So there's probably people that did not come because of that, and just lots of other things like that.
don't have to count rows and guess where to enter your fields to start clearing out a field. So really cool things there.
They even had a potato growing exhibit out here at the farm show. They actually have a lot of neat things going on out here at the farm. Pretty much everything agriculture you can think of.
Thanks everybody for coming out. The last day of Ag Progress Day. I'd like to thank Penn State University.
That's going to do it for this video. Feel free to go down there and hit that like button, leave a comment. If you're new to my channel, I'd really appreciate it if you go down there and hit that subscribe button and check back often. I'm always filming, editing, and uploading new content to my YouTube channel. And if you want to see more of what I'm doing, you can also follow me along on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Farmhand Mike. As always, thank you for watching and supporting my social media.